In this video, we're going to talk about view builders, right? And the main takeaway here is basically what they are, so you know they exist, and then the limitations of them, so you can set your expectations and not get frustrated like I did before I knew what they were. Okay, so in our code here on the weather app, let's use our Z stack, for example. And I'm gonna do the code folding again on the V stack just to make this clean and nice and easy to see here. I'll blow it up so you can read it a little better. So what the view builder is this closure. It's not a typical Swift closure, right? But you know, the Z stack takes an open and close curly brace. Our V stack takes an open and close curly brace, right? All the elements that return a view, that is the view builder, right? The open and close curly brace, the scope of that is the view builder. And like I said, they're limited. You can't write any code you want in a view builder. You can only write, certain things. More on that in a second. But if let's command click on VStack, do jump to definition, get into some documentation here so we can show you, right? So on the initializer of the VStack, remember how we showed it has an alignment parameter, which has a default value of .center for the horizontal alignment, has a spacing parameter, default value of nil. That's why we didn't always have to use them, but we could if we wanted because they had default values. That's just a little extra repetition review there. But the last parameter of content you can see is marked view builder, right? And it returns content. And if we scroll up to see what content is, it needs to conform to view. So content being marked view builder makes that closure, that scope, it's different, special. Again, like I said, you can't write whatever code you want in there, for loops, whatever. Well, at least for now, because the functionality of these view builders is expanding, right? It started off very basic in iOS 13 with just basically if-else statements, and I'll show you that in action in a second. But in iOS 14, it got functionality for if-let as well as switch statements, which is nice. So the functionality is slowly expanding. Who knows how far it will expand, but I do expect more functionality to be in these view builders down the road. Okay, so let's get out of the documentation, into our code, and again to review, the view builder is the scope of the open and close curly brace, of the Z stack or of the V stack. Now I'm going to show you some of that logic in action in my consulting project app. All right, so here we are at my category list screen. Let me put it up on the screen so you can see what you're looking at. It's basically just a list of items that if we tap on it, we can show a sheet of the detail, and then we can add to cart, whatever. So if we go back to the code, let me break that down for you. And I'll keep a little picture of the screen up there so you can kind of, correlate what's going on. So that list is basically a Z stack, as you see here. At the bottom of the Z stack is our grocery item list, and I've code folded all the implementation because it's quite long. That will be confusing. I'll tell you what I'm doing just so you know. So I'm showing the grocery list. On up here is where I fire off to the view model to make the network call to actually download, what's in that category. This sheet is how I present, when they tap on it, it presents all the detail view. That's what's going on there. And then this alert is for, any errors in the network call or any errors, whatever, we pop up the alert. So that's what's going on the list. Super high level, don't want to confuse you. But the main point I want to show here is, okay, so it's in a Z stack. So remember, Z stack is vertical layers of views. So at the bottom of the V stack is my list. Well, on top of it, I'm conditionally showing either a loading view or an empty state, right? Like I said, I make a network call to get all the items. Well, while it's loading, I put up just a blank white screen with a spinner, right? It's nothing crazy, nothing special. But that goes on top of the Z stack, so that's all you see. So what happens in the view model when it's done loading, that'll publish out to say, hey, loading equals false. So now it'll redraw this view. And now I'm kind of going into review on the whole, view tree reloading and updating. And now it'll go through this, is loading will be false. And then if my category list is not empty, none of this will show, right? Because it's in an if statement. And the only thing that will show is my grocery item list, right? But if, it is loading, now my loading view will show. And if it's done loading, but I have no items in my list, it will show the empty state that you see here. So again, this is using the if statement in the view builders. This is how you can conditionally show views in the view builder, depending on what's going on. Like I said, if everything's fine, cool, show the list. If it's loading, show the loading view. If it's empty, show the empty state, right? That's how I'm conditionally doing that. And like I said, new in iOS 14, you can now have switch statements in here. If you have like 5 different view types you need to show based on some piece of data, you can now have switch statements in here, which is really nice. And then you can now have if-let, to handle any optionals. So that's view builders. And again, the key takeaways here are knowing that they exist and knowing what they are. Hopefully you know that now. And then knowing the limitations of them, that you can't just write whatever code you want in here. You're pretty limited to basic control flow, like if else, switch statements, that kind of stuff. So if you find yourself trying to write all the code you want in your view builder and it's not working, this is why I know when I was first learning, I had so many headaches because I didn't learn that, and I was just trying to write whatever I wanted in here. I learned it pretty quickly when nothing worked, but hopefully I can save you that headache. So that's ViewBuilders.